Alright, hello everybody, I am BGM, and tonight on Live Deck Building, we are going to be building Nostro, the Voice of the Crags. He's a 4-drop Jeskai commander in red, white, and blue, and he says that we have an activated ability and it's modular, so we get to pick what it does. Based on the amount of spells we cast this turn, we can either scry a big number, have it deal X damage to target creature, or we can gain a bunch of life. So we are in Storm. This is not typically a deck style I play in. So I would appreciate all the suggestions you got. When I think about Storm builds, I think about blue, and when I think about blue, I think about Brainstorm. Let's pull up a Brainstorm, give it a little chat. So Brainstorm is a little 1 mana blue instant, and it says that we draw 3 cards, and then we put 2 cards from our hand on top of our library. If we have a deck that cares about what's on top of our library, because maybe we can put it on the battlefield for free, we could use this thing to stack the top of our library. It's also a cheap spell. It's a $3 little 1-drop uncommon blue instant, and it draws you 3 cards. If you have a commander that cares about draw triggers, like the Locust God, we could also stuff the Locust God in Nostro. That could be cool. If you like, the Locust God cares about drawing cards. This is a 1-mana instant. Instant speed draws you 3 cards. If you're playing that Niv Mizzet that pumps out damage when you draw cards, your Niv Mizzet's going to pump out 3 damage off this Brainstorm. I love Brainstorm. I think Brainstorm is just a good card to include in your decks, in all commander decks. If you don't really know what you want to stuff into your deck, you should run Brainstorm if you're running blue, because it's just a really good card draw spell. It's also instant speed. Thank you guys so much for the 42 likes already over on TikTok. I appreciate y'all. Hey everybody, I'm BGM. I'm a video editor and streamer, and on Live, I do live deck building. Our commander tonight is Nostro, Voice of the Crags. It was suggested by Voidless Void in the Discord server. Thank you, Void, for the suggestion. So let's pull up some Storm cards. Let's talk about Storm. Yeah, why not? Storm. What we got? What we got? So we got that Storm, that Storm. Oh, this thing. Okay, cool. So we built Otter Tribal a few months back when Bloomborough was coming out. We did a live deck tech on Alania, the Divergent Storm. This thing could be cool. It's good in Storm decks. Whenever you cast a spell, if it's the first instant, sorcery, or Otter of the turn, you can copy it if you let somebody draw a card. I played with someone in the Discord on Sunday named Fungi. He pops into live deck building. It'd be cool to see him. He was running Alania, and he had an Otter burn deck, and it did real good, y'all. Ooh, Rainbow Pupster wants us to run a Fiery Emancipation. That's a good suggestion. Let's talk about a Fiery Emancipation. Fiery Emancipation is a great way to end the game, because Fiery Emancipation says that you have to do 1/3 of the amount of work that you were going to do anyway, because this thing triples your damage output. If a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or a player, it deals triple that. This is the Enchanting Tales reprint. This one's $12. It came out in the Wilds of Eldraine expansion, but this is a reprint. I'm pretty sure we can find a cheaper version of this thing. It's also just a great way. If you are a combat damage or just a damaged person, this thing triples it. And it says you gotta deal with 1/3 of the amount of damage you would have to deal to get your opponents. It's a good one. Ooh, Soli wants us, Commander is going even after Wizards rip control of it. Going even, what does that mean? Commander is still going even? I mean, I only play Commander. Commander's the only kind of Magic I play. The Lumberwolf wants us to run Elminster. Elminster's a fun little planeswalker. Hey everybody, we are doing live deck building. If you have a suggestion for our Nostro, the Voice of the Crags, please put it in the comments. If you see your card over here, it'll be put into Moxfield deck listing. If you want to see what everybody else running in Nostro, Voice of the Crags, check out the Moxfield deck list that we are putting together with community suggestions. We got suggested this here Elminster. It's a 5 loyalty, 5 mana Azorius Planeswalker. It's got 2 abilities and a trigger. The trigger says whenever you scry, the next instant or sorcery spell costs X less, where X is the amount you're scrying. And you have, first activated ability, +2. Draw a card, then scry 2, which will make your instants and sorceries cost 2 less. You can also exile the top card by taking off 3 loyalty counters. You create a number of blue fairy dragon creature tokens with flying equal to the card's mana value. And also, if you want to be a wizard, he can be your commander. And he's cool. I've never seen an Elminster deck, commander deck, but I imagine it could be cool. I imagine it makes a bunch of Azorius tokens. I bet it cares about the top of the library. Probably finds a way to cheat stuff off the top of the library. Probably a spicy instant or sorcery. What name wants us to run a Storm King's Thunder? Storm King's Thunder is not a card I'm familiar with, but this thing came out in the Baldur's Gate expansion. It's $2. It's red, 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 X, and it's an instant. And it says when you next cast an instant or sorcery spell, you copy it X times, and you may choose new targets for the copy. This thing's awesome. I love this thing. I love that it's an instant. I love that it's kind of like a win the game. Like, when you're casting this thing, I imagine you're putting a bunch of mana into it. Maybe you have a big burn spell you're trying to copy a ton of times and just close out the game outright. This feels like an end of the game spell to me, or a draw your entire library spell to me. This feels like an end. I like this. This is. I love that this is $2. A lot of like the really high efficiency storm payoffs are expensive cards just because it's like it's a popular deck strategy, especially in Is It colors. Hey everybody, how are you doing? I'm BGM. I'm a video editor and streamer, and on Live Deck Building, we talk about the cards y'all want to run. And our commander tonight, suggested by Void, is a Nostro, the Voice of the Crags. This little Chimera 3/3 has an activated ability, and we can choose one. And when the ability gets more impactful, the more spells we've cast this turn. Thrill of Possibility. Thrill of Possibility. Thrill of Possibility. 2 mana, instant speed, red. We gotta discard a card as an additional cost to cast this thing. But we're drawing 2 cards. It's instant speed. I like this one. I also see this thing a lot in Storm decks. Oh, Rainbow Puffster wants us to run a Lost Isle. It's calling. Lost Isles calling. Lost Isle calling. Is this a Lord of the Rings card? Maybe? Yeah, it is a Lord of the Rings card. It's a 2 mana blue enchantment and says whenever you scry, you put a verse counter on this enchantment. It has an activated ability where you pay 6, you exile it, you draw a card for each verse counter on it, and if it had 7 or more verse counters on it, you take an extra turn. You activate it only as a sorcery. This thing's yikesy. I normally don't run extra turn spells, but I feel like in a Storm deck, you're not going to win with combat damage, and if you're not storming off and having crazy turns, you're not going to win. This thing is a way to get an extra turn and just get one more opportunity to close it out with some crazy big spell. Or bunch of spells in a Storm deck. What name wants us to run an Elementalist Palette? I like the Elementalist Palette. I think it's a good rock. The Elementalist Palette. Elemental Loss. Elementalist Palette is a 3-drop rock, and whenever you cast a spell with X in it, you put 2 charge counters on your Painter's Palette. You can tap it for a mana of any color, or you can tap it for a bunch of colorless, and you can spend the mana, or you can tap it for colorless equal to the amount of counters on it, and you can only use the mana for an X spell, which is pretty cool, I guess. Because we did see that $2 little red instant that copies something X times. This thing could make a silly amount of mana, and then we can just put more into that X with this thing. I also think this would be really cool in that Sultai Hydra's deck that cares about X spells too. It's kind of just a dumb, funny card. What's a dumb, funny card? I got one. I just need to find it. It's a card based around +1/+1 card. Narset Enlightened Master. Hey, Dylan. Good to see you. Narset. I like Narset Enlightened Master. It's cool. I like Narset. I think she's got good lore. This one. Nope, that's the Enlightened Exile. We're looking for the Enlightened Master. Okay, this thing. Let's talk about this thing. This thing has hurt some feelings. This thing is a feel-bad commander. This 6-drop, first striking, hexproof, 3/2 says whenever it attacks, exile the top 4 cards of your library. Until end of turn, you may cast non-creature spells from among those cards for free. For free. This thing is often used to cast a spell called Armageddon off its trigger. Armageddon is a spell that blows up all lands. So basically how Narset wants to play out when it's running the Armageddon strategy is you play Narset, you hit Armageddon, nobody has lands, and nobody can play. And you just keep beating with Narset and getting value off her damage triggers. That's how I've seen Narset played in Commander. Normally, like, if I see someone pull out a Narset deck across from me, I'm like, I'll play you once. But if you're not fun, I don't know. Narset, I don't know. Narset's whooped me in some unfun ways in the past. Shram's Expertise. I like Shram's Expertise. Shram's Expertise is fun. It makes you 3 little colorless 1/1 servo artifact creature tokens, and you get to cast a 3-drop from your hand for free. This thing's really cool. I started playing Magic around the time that Kaladesh and Aether Revolt first came out, and this thing was one of my favorite cards because it casts a free card when you cast it. It's really good. It's only 70 cents. I mean, it's okay. It does make you 3 tokens, so if you care about tokens, and if you have a bunch of low drops that in your hand, it's cool. It can get you a free spell and make you some tokens. I like it though. I have a soft spot for it because it's a nostalgic card for me. It gives you a free 3-drop spell. That's pretty good. It also increases the amount of spells you're casting. In fact, all the expertises would probably be pretty good in Nostro, I feel like, because they're casting you extra spells. I see where you're going with this now. This is a good suggestion. Very good suggestion. Thank you. Yeah, it would play into the storm. Halana and Elena, partners. I'm sorry, I don't think the lesbians are in our colors, so we can't play them in this deck. We should do a Halana and Elena partners deck one day for live deck tech. I should write that down. Yeah, I like those cards. The Gruul Friends, I fucks with them. They're great. Leyline of Punishment. Leyline of Punishment. Leyline of Punishment. Leyline of Punishment is the red leyline. It says that damage can't be prevented and players can't gain life. Womp womp. It's $5, and if you have it in your opening hand, you can plop it on the battlefield for free and stop those dirty life gain players. And you can also stop the people preventing damage. I don't think I've ever seen this card played a singular time, but it's interesting. I think the art's a vibe. All right, thank you for the suggestion. All right, what name wants us to run? Kaikar, Winds Flurry. Is that the new Kaikar? I like new Kaikar. I also like old Kaikar. This is old Kaikar. Old Kaikar is a Jeskai 4-drop. It says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you make yourself a little 1/1, and you can also sacrifice the 1/1s you make with Kaikar to produce a red mana at instant speed. I like this thing. This is also a Stormy commander, but it's like a Stormy tokens commander. I'd probably run Kaikar over this one. Just because this one leans so heavily into Storm strategies. You need to be winning to get this thing to, like, go off hard. This thing, though, you can incrementally cast stuff throughout the course of a game and get value and get mana off the value. I really like Kaikar. Did you guys see the new Kaikar? I want to talk about new Kaikar, too. New Kaikar is a 4-drop. It's a 3/4. It flies. And whenever you cast a non-creature spell, you get a trigger like the old one where you can either make a 1/1 flying spirit creature token, or you can exile another target creature you control and then plop it back down onto the battlefield. And that's a really fun trigger if you care about ETBs. If you got a creature with an ETB, you can cast a non-creature spell, exile the thing, plop it down at the battlefield on the end step, get the thing's trigger again. And it's almost like you cast it twice. I like this Kaikar. I also think this could be a really fun commander, too. Oh, right. So yeah, those are Kaikars. Kaikars are great. Gigantosaurus. Unfortunately, Jordan Sullivan, Gigantosaurus won't come up. Because of Moxfield's DeckBuilding parameters, if the card's outside of our color identity, it ain't coming up. And we ain't running green tonight, but let's pull up Repercussion. Repercussion. What name wants us to run? Repercussion. Thank you, What Name, for so many suggestions tonight. I appreciate it. Okay, Repercussion. This is the Enchanting Tales one that got a reprint. This version's $6. It's 3 mana. It's mono red. And whenever a creature is dealt damage, this thing deals that much damage to that creature's controller. Teehee, don't block. Or just take it. This thing's very silly. I like this a lot. This is definitely going to impact a commander game and the way people are attacking. I like this a lot, actually. I also like that it's $6 for the fancy art. I wonder... This is cool. Also, the art's good. Winning card. I really like this. This does change the way that everybody functions within a commander game. It's something that you can't really ignore. I really like it. Also, it ends games faster because it kind of turns off blocking a little bit. Well, not turns it off, but like you're still taking damage. Very cool card. Very interesting card. Good suggestion. Oh, Shram! And all the 0-drop equipment. Shram. Shrazam. Not Shrazam. Shram. Shram. Senior Edificer is a 2-drop. He's a legendary dwarf artificer. And he says that whenever you cast an aura, equipment, or vehicle spell, you draw yourself a card. Thank you very much, Rasam's there, for the follow. I appreciate it. I'm BGM. I'm a video editor and streamer. I talk about Magic the Gathering in a silly, gay way. We're doing live deck building. This is Nostro. He's our commander for tonight. If you want to suggest something for Jeskai Storm, put it in the comments. If you see it over here, be put into a Moxfield deck listing and see what other people would run in Nostro by checking out the Moxfield profile. And if you want to vote on the commanders we talk about during live deck building, you can do that on the Discord server. This is Shram, Senior Edificer. He draws you cards. He's typically run in like an Enchantress or an Equipment Matter strategy. I don't really think him for Storm, but that Shram's Expertise spell that casts as a free 3-drop is really cool. Not Teferi, he's a legendary. Atali. Unfortunately, yeah, we can run Atali. We can run we can run the worst Atali. Yeah, here's the lesser Atali. It's a 6-drop mono red dinosaur elder. It's a 6/6, and when it enters, when it attacks, exile the top card of each player's library. You may then cast any number of them without paying for them. He's cool, but Atali can whiff. Atali can whiff real hard, y'all. He might get you a bunch of free spells, but he might also get you nothing. And he's gotten me nothing plenty of times. It's probably why he's only $1. But interesting about the way that Atali is worded, because we are casting the spells and we are getting free casts, he could make Nostro's activation pretty spicy. So that's where I imagine he could do a good job. Recon, good to see you over on Twitch. Thanks for popping in, man. Always happy to see you. Cool. So you're suggesting the spin into Myth. Spin into Myth. Yeah, we're doing Storm again. We did Storm last week, and I was out of my element. We actually did Storm. We did the X-Men Storm card. Suggested by Recon over on Twitch. It's a 5-mana blue instant. Put target creature on top of its owner's library, then Fate Seal 2. Fate Seals means you look at the top 2 cards of your opponent's library and then put any number of them on the bottom of that player's library and put the rest on top of any order. Okay, cool. So this is interesting. This is a little piece of removal. Put target creature on top of its owner's library, and then you can Fate Seal it. So when you Fate Seal the creature, you look at the top 2 cards. So we're looking at the creature we put there, and then the card underneath it, and then we can decide if we don't want their opponents to have them. I like this a lot. This is a good way to, like, hard remove a creature. I feel like if you remove something with this, you're not going to see it for the rest of the game unless they tutor for it. I quite like this a lot. I like that it's an instant. I like that it's hard removal. It's almost exile. I don't love that it's 5 mana. That 5 mana feels like a lot for me. But the art's cool, the effect's really cool, and the effect's really interesting, too. So that Fate Seal means you're going to look at it, that card you put there, the one underneath it, you decide if you want to put both on the bottom. It's interesting. It's very interesting. Thank you, Recon. Swerve! What the heck is Swerve? Swerve? What is a Swerve? Okay. Swerve is an Izzet colors. It probably would be with a name like Swerve. It's an instant. And it says you change the target of target spell with a single target. Great. So if someone's plopping down like a Swords to Plowshares or a Path to Exile, an Assassin's Trophy, a Murder, any little single target removal, you can cast this thing for 2 and you can change the target and we can maybe protect our very confusing commander. I like this thing. It reminds me of that free commander spell that just flips the game. What's it called? Deflecting Swat. It's a deflecting spot that you have to pay 2 honest mana for, and I like that. Oh, thank you for the suggestion. Stank Boy. Thank you, Stank Boy. Jordan Sullivan wants us to run a River's Rebuke. I like a River's Rebuke. River's Rebuke is a little kind of like Merfolky card from one of the original Ixalan sets. It's a 6-drop little blue sorcery. It's got mer people on it, and they're getting rid of some pirates. And it says return all non-land permanents target player controls to their owner's hand. This thing is only 79 cents. This thing's really good. It says fuck one person in particular and you return all their stuff into their hand and they got a deal. It feels fair. It's 6 mana. It's a sorcery and it's just return to hand. They can recast them if they live. This thing's really spicy. I like it a lot. Thank you for the suggestion. It's also kind of a little bit of a nostalgic card for me because I ran this a lot. I think it's a good piece of removal, and I like to hold it into my hand until I'm like one of the last players in the game, and then you cast this, and normally it just kind of bones them for the rest of it. I like this card. If you can copy it a couple times, it kind of functions like a Cyclonic Rift. Steven Wilson wants us to run an Eye of the Storm. Eye of the Storm. Eye of the Storm. Thank you guys for the 44 likes. Eye of the Storm is a 7-mana blue enchantment. It's got a very, very old man with a very powerful beard on it. It says whenever a player plays an instant or sorcery card, you remove it from the game, and that player copies it for each spell removed from the game with this. For each copy, they may play the copy without paying for it. This is super fucking interesting. This thing is something you want to cast right before you're about to win, I feel like. If you're playing against another Storm player, I probably would hold on to this. Whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery, they remove it. This thing's very silly. This thing is so silly. It will get you an insane amount of Storm triggers, though. Especially if it's allowed to stay on. This thing is like a must-remove card in a Storm deck, because it just gets you to that high cast count so fast. Like, you play like a 2-drop or like a Brainstorm or some other nonsense. Maybe an opponent plays something that gets exiled with this thing. They can also take advantage of the things exiled with this thing. It's very silly. It's very silly. It's very interesting. Spicy. Lots to consider there. That's what you like about it, Jordan? Alright, Lost Isle Calling. So we've seen Lost Isle Calling twice already. Y'all are hot on this card. I have one of these. It lives in a binder. It's a 50-cent 2-mana blue enchantment from the Lord of the Rings expansion. And it says whenever you scry, you put a verse counter on the Isle of Calling. You can also pay 6 mana, exile this thing, draw a card, and if this thing had 7 or more verse counters from this first tier ability, you get an extra turn, but you can only activate this thing as a sorcery. This is just a cheeky little extra turn spell. Our commander can help us scry, so I imagine we can do that. We can set up for powerful draws, and then, yeah, interesting. I typically am not an extra turns person. I'm a very not CDH person, but, you know, that's pretty cool. Is it the extra turns? Are you guys like this for the extra turns? Or, yeah, it has to be, because that's the only thing this thing does. It's kind of like an 8-mana extra turn spell. It's an 8-mana extra turn spell. Weird. It's very weird. Okay. Hall of the Bandit Lord. So we've seen the Hall of the Bandit Lord. It got scrolled by while we were talking about other cards. Let's talk about this here Hall of the Bandit Lord. It's a legendary land. It's 13 bucks. It enters the battlefield tapped. You tap it, you pay 3 life, you add a colorless mana to your mana pool. If that mana is spent on a creature spell, that creature's got haste. This thing is very sneaky. I don't know how I feel about it. Is this part of a combo or something? It's good. It's got to be a good card. It's a $13 land, and it's a $13 land that enters the battlefield tapped. It does give the creature haste, but you do gotta pay life. I don't know how I feel about this. We dabbling in a budget. Ghoulie, we are talking about whatever y'all want to talk about. I'm BGM. I'm a video editor and streamer. I run this little show called Live Deck Building where we talk about our commander over here and we talk about what you guys, the Magic community, would put into the deck. So we're pulling up a Cloud of Fairies suggested by a Rainbow Pupster. Yeah, and if you want to see any of the cards that we've talked about on the show, you can pull up the Moxfield deck list. That's in the link tree. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for the suggestion, guys. Holy snap, guys. I thank you for like the 40 likes like a minute ago, and you guys jumped that up to 540. Thank you. Y'all can chill. Y'all just relax. Thank you very much for doing that for me. All right, Cloud of Fairies is the suggestion. We got Rainbow Pupster. Cloud of Fairies. Okay, Cloud of Fairies looks like it... I don't know what set this is originally from. It's a 2-drop flying 1/1 with cycling, and when it enters the battlefield, you can untap up to 2 lands. I really like this thing. Like creatures that just untap lands are so good because they don't specify what lands. If you have like a Temple of the False God that taps for 2 mana, that's a great target to untap. If you have a bounce land that enters, returns a land to your hand, but taps for 2, that's a great land to untap. I really like the thing, or like if you have like a Nykthos Shrine to Nyx that's making you a bunch of mana equal to your devotion, that's another great land to untap. I like this thing. It kind of reminds me of like a tiny Gilded Drake, not Gilded Drake, Peregrine Drake. Yeah, it's tiny, and I bet people don't break it with infinite combos. Petrify is a really good card for telling creatures no. Is Petrify in our colors? Petrify is in our colors. It's a mono-white enchantment. It's a 2-drop. It's an aura. You enchant an artifact, or you enchant the creature. The enchanted creature can't attack, can't block, and its activated abilities can't be activated. The only thing that creature's gonna do is sit there and trigger, trigger, trigger. This thing's silly. It's kind of like pacifism that also stops activated abilities. If you're confused about what an activated ability means, this thing that taps and then you see a semicolon, semicolons differentiate the cost of an ability and the ability itself. So when you see a semicolon, that means an activated ability. Yeah, this thing's interesting. This is a good little piece of removal, especially like in a light pause deck. This thing could be disgusting. All right. Holy snap, y'all! Thank you for the... y'all can chill. Y'all, thank you so much for tapping the screen. I really appreciate it, but let's just chill. Thank you, though. Ashling the Pilgrim for a fun game of chicken. Ashling the Pilgrim. Ashling the Pilgrim. That's not the... that's the red one, right? Yeah, so Ashling the Pilgrim is a 2-drop legendary elemental shaman, and it says that you can pay 2, put a +1/+1 counter on Ashling the Pilgrim. if this is the third time you're doing this ability this turn, you remove all the counters from it, and it deals that much damage to each creature and each player. This thing's cool. You can build it up and just keep board wiping over and again for tiny creatures. I think you can deal a max of 4 damage. Nope, it can deal it can do different amounts of damage, actually. So if you differentiate between turns, like maybe you only activate it twice one turn, you wait for it to roll over, then you can get higher amounts of damage the longer the Ashling sits on the battlefield, making bigger and bigger board wipes or like blasphemous act-like effects. That's pretty cool. I like that it's 50 cents. I like that it's 2 mana. It's pretty cool, actually. I normally see this thing in a command zone just to make me sad, but this is cool. Also, the art is such a vibe. The artist, who are you? Wayne Reynolds did such a rad job on the art for this Ashling the Pilgrim card. Thank you for the suggestion. All right. Ooh, Duffel503 wants us to run this here Seething Song. Let's talk about Seething Song. Seething Song is not a card I'm familiar with. It's red. It's 3 mana. It's an instant speed, and it's kind of like Dark Ritual, but red. You gotta pay 3 for it, but you make 5. This thing generates you 2 extra mana, and if you copy it somehow, you're gonna make a crap ton of mana. This thing wants to be copied. You want to copy it a bunch of times. This thing's very fun. I don't play Storm builds because I find that they're very big brain strategy, and I like little piddly back and forth creature strategies. This thing's very cool. If you can get a bunch of copies, you make like 15 mana off this thing, you can cast like a big, I don't know, crackling fireball. Or Crackle with Power, that's the one. Very cool card. All right. Jordan Sullivan wants us to run Confiscate? Confiscate. I hope it's Confiscate, and I'm not just messing up your spelling, Jordan. Confiscate. Confiscate. I really hope this is what you meant. All right. Confiscate is a 6-drop little blue enchantment. Enchant a permanent. It's ours now. Ours. Your commander, Confiscate. It now belongs to us. This thing's cool. It's 40 cents. It's a 6-drop. It's an aura. It's in blue, and it's ours now. It's a meme card. No one's gonna like having this played on them. It's an older card. It's only 40 cents though, and for those reasons I like it. Dramatic Reversal. What name? We talked about Eye of the Storm just a few minutes ago, but thank you for the suggestion. But we did talk about it. For Eye of the Storm, it's an interesting enchantment because it does work on everybody. Dramatic Reversal, though. If you guys are familiar with a card called Isochron Scepter, Isochron Scepter is a little artifact that enters the battlefield. You exile a tiny instant or sorcery from your hand, and you can pay 2 and you can cast copies of that instant or sorcery with the Isochron Scepter. Isochron Scepter usually gets this thing exiled with it, so when they activate the Isochron Scepter, they untap the Isochron Scepter, and all permanents they control, generally making infinite mana with the Isochron Scepter and this Dramatic Reversal. This thing's cool, though. If you are running out of mana and you're playing good, not combo-y Christian Magic the Gathering, this thing's cool. It's an instant speed. You can untap your mana. You can respond to things. I like it. I normally do see it stuffed under an Isochron Scepter, though. Zada Hedron Grinder. Zada Hedron Grinder. Zada Hedron Grinder is a 4-drop legendary goblin ally. This thing's seen a bunch of reprints. My favorite reprint of Zada Hedron Grinder is in the March of the Machines expansion. It's got a fancy art. If you want to play Zada, you should play that art because it's so sick. This little 3/3 goblin says whenever you cast another instant or sorcery spell that targets only Zada, you copy that spell for each other creature that the spell could target. Each copy hits one of those creatures. Excuse me. It's cool. It's interesting. It makes a big board when it is the commander. It's kind of like an instance and sorcery goblin deck that is kind of Voltron-y, but it does it wide board. This is a very fun deck. This is a very fun build. It's cool. I've never built it, but I've definitely lost to it. It itself is like a creature storm effect because you're casting instants and sorceries in Zada that make bodies, because the way you win with Zada is by having Zada be targeted with things, and then all your other bodies on board also get the effects. Oh, Equinox Paradox! Hey, Fun Fungi! Dream Demon, good to see y'all. Equinox Paradox is an Elegeth Elegeth. What the heck is an Elegeth? Elegeth Crossroads Augur is a legendary Sphinx. It's a 5/6. It flies. If you would scry a number of cards, you instead draw that many. That's just way better than scrying. And that's really good because our commander can tap and we can scry X. Or if we got this here Sphinx things, we're going to draw X. Very cool. It also has partner, so if we're running in the command zone, he can have a buddy. Very cool Sphinx. All right, and then Fun Guy wants us to run. What's the theme for the deck? Creature spells what? We are doing Jeskai Storm. So the way that we get value off our commander Nostro is that we cast a bunch of spells, we tap him, we either scry X, we deal X damage, or we gain a bunch of life. Mizzix of the Ismagics, suggested by Dream Demon over on Twitch. Thanks, good to see you, Dream Demon. Mizzix of the Ismagus. He's a goblin. Yeah, he's a goblin. He's a 4-drop goblin. Whenever you cast an sorcery spell with greater CMC than the number of experience counters you have, you get an experience counter. Instants and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each experience counter you got. This thing's very cool. This thing was one of the original commanders, like commander product commanders ever. It is like the OG, is it printed for commander spell slinger strategy. It came out alongside like Marin of Clan Neltoth and I think the Boros experience counter thing. But like Marin of Clan Neltoth and Mizzix of the Ismagics are the more popular commanders of that set. This thing is very interesting. It itself can ramp you in a way that you're just casting a bunch of free stuff, drawing a ton of cards, and storming off with this thing. Because it's giving you such a big mana advantage. Thank you for the suggestion. Brash Taunter. Oh, I love Brash Taunter. Brash Taunter is such a fun card in Commander. I would suggest that you guys run Brash Taunter. If you're running red, it's just a good little piece of interaction. It's so good. It's a 5-drop, 1/1 indestructible goblin. And whenever this thing deals combat damage, this thing is dealt combat damage, it deals that much damage to target opponent. So if you block something that doesn't have trample, you're going to deal that much damage to an opponent. This thing's amazing. It's also indestructible. I love this thing. This is such a fun blocker to have on the board, and you can also have it fight things. This thing is so fun. It's only $1. It's 5 mana. It's so good, and it's so silly. Notable weaknesses about this card, though: if you were blocking a creature with trample, they only have to assign 1 damage when you're blocking with it. So you're only going to deal 1 damage. You want to be blocking creatures that ain't got trample with your Brash Taunter. Rainbow Pupster suggests a Frantic Surge. Frantic Surge is rad. I love Frantic Surge. I was just looking at this card the other day. If you want to play Spell Table with me, join the Discord. We play on Sundays. Frantic Surge is a 3-drop blue instant. It's 70 cents. You draw 2 cards, and then you discard 2 cards. You untap 3 lands. I love Frantic Surge. Frantic Surge is so good because it has that little type, right, those words right here that say you untap 3 lands. They don't have to be basics. They can be like a Temple of the False God, your bounce land that taps for 2 but returns a land to your hand when it enters. You can untap your spiciest land with this here Frantic Surge. It's also an instant 2. It's instant speed card draw. If your deck cares about discard, it's also instant speed discard. I love this. This card is so good, y'all. So good. It's only 70 cents. It untaps your land. It's free, guys. It's a 3-drop blue instant that's free. It untaps your 3 lands, and if you hit a land that taps for multiple mana, it generates mana too. It's so good. It's such a great little Storm card. And it's good outside of Storm strategies too. Good card. Very good card. I'm just a knockout version of Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm just a knockout. What? I loved him in X draw spells. View from above. You will see what. Yeah, view from above. What the heck is view from above? View from above is not a card I'm familiar with. View from above is a 2-drop blue instant. It's 40 cents. And target creature gains flying until end of turn. If you control a white permanent, return view from above to its owner's hand. This is silly. Okay, so if we generate a crap ton of mana, and we want to storm the hell off, we can cast this thing a ton of times and have it keep going back to our hand, and we really just can cast it as many times as we have the mana to cast it. We can get a high storm count off this thing with Nostro, activate Nostro, get a big activation off Nostro with this thing. And just keep doing it every turn, because really the only thing stopping us is having, if you control a white permanent, we just got to have a white permanent and it keeps coming back to our hands and we can just keep recasting it. It feels like a waste of mana, but if we're getting that storm cost high, and if we are running our other scrying synergy spells, this thing could be really cool. Thank you for the suggestion. Who put that in here? View from above. Chris Kimball, thank you very much for the suggestion. This is a really interesting card. View from above. Thank you, Chris. Halo. All right, I'm sorry, Rainbow Puffster. I see you over on Twitch. Halo Fountain. Halo Fountain. Okay, Halo Fountain's interesting. I'm pretty sure it's also a win con, but it's kind of a token win con. 3-drop artifact. Has 3 activated abilities. You pay a white. You untap it. You untap a tapped creature you control. You make yourself a citizen 1/1. You pay 2 white, you tap the Halo Fountain, you untap 2 tapped creatures you control, you'll draw yourself a card. You pay 5 white, you untap 15 creatures you control, and you've won the game. This thing's a cool little win con. It's $11. It came out in New Capenna. I probably wouldn't run it in a Storm build unless we're doing something with Kaikar where we care about tokens. This guy doesn't care about tokens so much. This is a very exciting card, though, and we do see it a lot on live deck building. The art's also a vibe. Yeah, or actually we could use it to untap Nostro. Rainbow Pupster, that's a good point. We can use the Halo Fountain to untap Nostro. Good point. My bad. I didn't consider that. Oh, Sky Sea Bear wants us to run a 1,000-year storm. 1,000-year storm. 1,000-year storm. It's like a 6-drop. Isn't enchantment. This one was reprinted in Foundations, but I think it was originally printed in like Ravnica Allegiance or something. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you copy it for each other instant and sorcery spell you've cast before it this turn. You may choose new targets for the copies. This thing's a great way to storm off. If we are casting a bunch of little spells, this thing is going to like Fibonacci sequence out, get us a crazy high storm count, and probably win the game after a few triggers of this thing. Very cool suggestion. Also, it's only 50 cents. Good vibes. Will, Scion of Peace. Scion of Peace is cool because Will makes shit cheaper, right? So, Will the Scion of Peace is a 3-mana, 2/4 vigilant human wizard. You tap him. Spells you cast this turn that are white and or blue cost X less to cast, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn. Activate only as a sorcery. So I imagine the way we would use Will is we would set up a really, really big splashy turn, right? We do this by probably having an X spell in our hand, having cast a few stuff already, activate Nostro for his life gain effect. Get the life gain effect, activate Will, so that he makes our instants and sorceries that are white and blue cost X less, where X is the amount of life we gain. Yeah, that's cool, and then we get a nice finisher spell at the end of our storm chain. Very cool. Zombie Kidney over on Twitch is suggesting an Arcane Bombardment. Arcane Bombardment. Arcane Bombardment is a 6-drop red enchantment that came out in the Outlaws of Thunder Junction precons. This thing's $2, and it says whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, you exile an instant or sorcery card at random from your graveyard, and then you copy each card exile with Uncard Bombardment. You may cast any number of the copies without paying for them. This thing's great. So this thing's kind of like that Eye of the Storm, that 1,000-year storm enchantment that we saw. I kind of like this one a little bit better, though, because it's 1 mana cheaper than the Eye of the Storm. It doesn't work on your opponent's spells. And, yeah, it's cool. You get a bunch of copies. The more things you cast after this thing's on the battlefield, the more impactful its triggers are going to be. This is very cool. The only thing that I find a little bit hiccupy about it is that it exiles the things from your graveyard at random. So, like, you're not able to be precise. It's harder to plan, but I don't know, it's kind of, I like it. I like it a lot, actually. It's real good. It's only $2, too. Thank you, Jordan, for the follow. I appreciate it. Mind's Desire. Mind's Desire. Mind's Desire. Mind's Desire is a 6-drop sorcery, and it's got Storm. shuffle your library, then exile the top card of your library. Until end of turn, you may play that card without paying for it. This thing's very cool. This is a great thing to copy. It's also a great thing to cast at the end of a spell chain, because this thing's got Storm, meaning that we're going to copy it for each spell we've cast this turn. That means that we're going to just keep shuffling our library, cutting it, and if we hit a spell, we get it for free. But we don't have to cast it immediately, right? So if we can wait until all the effects resolve, until we've exiled a bunch of things, wait for the Storm Chain to go off, until we have all the spells that we're going to have exiled with this thing go off. Once we have all those spells, because we can play them until end of turn, we can choose how those spells resolve. I like this thing a lot. It's very fun. It's great. It is a Storm win con, and it's only 60 cents. Great card. Autumn wants us to run the Thornbite Staff. Thornbite Staff. Thornbite Staff. Thornbite Staff is a 2-mana little artifact. It's an equipment. The equipped creature has pay 2. Tap it. This creature deals 1 damage to any target. Whenever a creature dies, untap this creature. There it is, y'all. Whenever a shaman creature enters the battlefield, you may attach the stat to it. Otherwise, it's got equip 4. This thing's really cool. This is a way that we can keep untapping our commander Nostro over here. Keep getting those big chunky activations off him, gain a bunch of life, scry a bunch of cards, deal some damage to a target creature. I really wish our boy Nostro said an opponent. It would be really cool to Nostro someone to death. I think that's a fun turn of phrase. I want to tell someone I'm going to Nostro them. Yeah, Thornbite Staff, great way to untap our commander and just keep activating him. Yeah, because we don't have to pay mana to activate Nostro, we just got to tap him, and this thing untaps him. And it's whenever a creature dies. That's also our opponent's creatures, y'all. So we just got to pay attention, and we'll get a bunch of untapped fairies. To me. Hey everybody, I am BGM. I'm a video editor and streamer, and on live, we do live deck building. And we are talking about Nostro, the voice of the Crag, as the commander tonight. And if you want to suggest any cards for our Nostro deck, please put them in the comments. If you see them over here, they'll be put into a Moxfield deck list. And if you want to see what other people have suggested and put into the Moxfield deck list so far, check out the Moxfield page. It's in the link tree. Thanks for hanging out. This is a Pyromancer's Goggles. This is a 5-drop little mana rock. It's a 5-drop mana rock that only taps for a singular red. But when you use the red mana that this thing produces to cast a red instant or sorcery spell, you copy it. And you get to choose new targets for it. This thing's great. This thing is a spell stick. It doubles up your spell. You do have to... Let me choose new cards for the copy. I'm pretty sure because it says you don't cast it for free, you do have to pay for the copy, which is a little bit of a bummer. But it is a rock that you tap it and you double spell. And it adds a mana to help you cast for the copy. Excuse me, help you pay for the copy. This thing's very cool. This one's only $2. This is a way better art than the original printing. This one's from Foundation, so this is the newer one. Good card. Good card. Oko, Thief of Crowns, unfortunately is not in our color identity, Bo Taylor. I'm sorry. Weeb Hunter wants us to run a Galvanoff, the Biblioplex Assistant. The Biblioplex Assistant. Biblioplex Assistant is a hardcore title. We just have Biblioplex Assistant, Biblioplex Assistant? Okay, we're gonna pull up Biblioplex Assistant. It's a colorless gargoyle 2/1. It flies, and when it enters the battlefield, you put up to one target, insert a sorcery card from your graveyard on top of your library. Okay, let's talk about it. So there's a really popular card that has it's called Archaeomancer. Archaeomancer is this effect, except it is color restricted to blue. And also, Archaeomancer is a difficult word to spell. Biblioplex is still an easier word to spell than Archaeomancer, and this thing's colorless. Archaeomancer requires 2 blue and 2 colorless to cast. You also wanted us to run a Galvanoff. Sorry, Galvanoff's not coming up. Repercussion. Yeah, we talked about repercussion. It's been a while. Let's talk about repercussion again. Repercussion is a rad little enchantment. It got a reprint in the Wilds of Eldraine expansion. And this little $6 3-drop mono red enchantment turns off blockers, kind of, because whenever a creature is dealt damage, Repercussion deals that much damage to the creature's controller. So even if you're blocking, you're still going to take damage. It's worse than Afflict if you're familiar with that keyword from Hours to Devastation. This thing's really cool. It's got a rad art, it's $6, and it just got a reprint in the Wilds of Eldraine expansion. With a fancy, cool full art. Thank you. Alright. And then Zombie Kidney wants us to run a Temporal Fissure. Temporal Fissure. Thank you, Big Show, for the follow. I appreciate it. I'm Big G. I'm a video editor and a streamer. I make silly little MTG content. We're talking about Nostro tonight. If you have a suggested card for our commander, put it in the comments. See it over here. We'll be put into a Boxfield deck list. This is Temporal Fissure. It is a 40-cent mono blue 5-drop sorcery. It says return target permanent to its owner's hand, but it's got Storm, which is a great way to just turn this into like a one-sided board wipe for our opponents. If we get a high enough Storm count, we are going to make somebody want to flip a table. Because if we get like a Storm count of 20, if we're really having a great game with Nostro that day, this thing returns lands. If they run out of non-land permanents, we can just return lands to their hand. We can be that person. The disrespect, like, oh man, this is silly. Oh boy, this is silly. Woo, that's a fun one. Good suggestion. How do you feel about Kinnan, Bonder, Prodigy? Big Show. So when I think of Kinnan, Bonder, Prodigy, I think about CEDH. I have not seen a Kinnan deck outside of CEDH tables. What about multiple? Yeah, we can do multiples on tap. We'll do like a Patriarch Seal. Yeah, so I don't like Kinnan because I don't play CDH because I'm a Weenie Hut Junior's commander baby. But we talk about whatever cards you want to on live deck building because this is, I don't know, I like to think that this is a nice way to see what the commander community is running in their commanders. So if you want to suggest some CDH staples, feel free. If we're talking about untappers, I really like this thing. Holy This thing I did not expect to be, this thing was not $6 a few months ago. This thing used to be like found in bulk boxes. This thing is a 3-drop colorless artifact. If you tap it, you can add 1 mana, or you can pay 1 and you can untap target legendary creature you control. Most commanders are legendary. If your commander's got an activated ability that requires you to tap, like our boy Nostro tonight, this thing is a way that we can untap our commander and get multiple activations on him throughout a turn. I like hidden strings. I like Cypher cards. Are you guys familiar with the Cypher mechanic? I love Cypher. Cypher is so fun in Commander, and Hidden Strings is a really fun one because you can use it to untap your lands. This is a little 2-drop sorcery. You may tap or untap target permanent you control, and then you may tap or untap another target permanent. Or wait, you may tap or untap target permanent. You don't have to control it, and then basically you tap or untap 2 things. It also has Cypher, so when you resolve this thing, you exile it underneath the creature. And then whenever the creature deals combat damage, you get to cast a free version of the spell you ciphered. I love Cypher. There's an incredibly good Cypher spell that came out in the Outlaws of Thunder Junction, and there's also another really good Cypher spell from this set that lets you make copies of stuff. I think it's called Stolen Strategy. I think it's called Stolen Strategy. Nope, it's not called Stolen Strategy. I don't know that one. Henny, good to see you from the Visions or something. How are you a commander not know Pyromancer's how Pyromancer's goggles work? Pyromancer's goggles. Yeah, we talked about Pyromancer's goggles a moment ago. Pyromancer's goggles is a 5-drop legendary artifact. You tap it, you add red. And when this man's cast a spend a red instant or a sorcery spell, you copy that spell and you may choose new targets for the copy. Yeah. It's a rock, it double spells. It gives you copies. It doesn't say that you cast the copies for free, so I'm pretty sure you gotta pay for them. Please correct me if I'm wrong. What do you think about Repurposing Bay? What the heck is a Repurposing Bay? Repurposing Bay. Okay, this thing's brand new from Aether Drift. It's a 3-drop artifact. It's $9. It's got an activated ability. You pay 2, you tap it, sacrifice another artifact, search your library for an artifact card with mana value 1 plus the sacrifice artifact's mana value. Put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle. Activate only as a sorcery. This thing's great. I imagine this thing is going to go hard in like a Jorah deck, or an artifact storm strategy that cares about the specific artifacts you have on the battlefield. Yeah, this thing's very cool. It repeatedly tutors. It's kind of like that Prime Speaker Zagana in Simic colors that you tap, you sacrifice something, you search for something with mana value plus, with 1 plus the thing you sacrifice CMC, you plop on the battlefield. This feels a lot like that, except for blue artifacts. I imagine the Jorah Historic deck really wants this thing. This thing's very cool. Good art, too. Hey, Barber R's, good to see you. Battle Mage's Bracers. Hey, Evan, good to see you. Battle Mage's Bracers is a great card, and I think about buying it every single time you guys suggest it. This thing's $6. It's a red artifact. It came out in the Strixhaven precons, and it says that the equipped creature's got haste. It's got equip 2, and whenever an ability of equipped creature is activated, if it ain't a mana ability, you pay 1. If you do, you choose. You get a copy, and you get to pick new targets. This thing's very sick. And it would be cool in Nostro. We can plop it on Nostro, pay 1 when we activate him, get a copy. We can pick new targets. Very cool. I like Battle Mage's Bracers. Battle Mage's Bracers are real good. I've never played with them, but I want to. You don't pay or cast copies when you copy spells on stack. The Raid Professor. Okay, cool. So we are not paying for the copy with this thing, and we're not paying with the Pyromancer's goggles. Thank you, Raid Professor. Appreciate you hanging out with us tonight. Okay. Next suggestion. I need a Brass Talon Chimera. What the heck is a Brass Talon Chimera? Henny, what's a Brass Talon Chimera? Brass Talon Chimera. Wow, that thing is ugly. Okay, so we got a 4-drop artifact creature. It's got first strike. It counts as a Chimera, so it's an artifact creature Chimera. You can sacrifice this thing and put 2 I hate this. Is this like one of the only cards that gives +2/+2 counters on target Chimera? Against first strike permanently. Okay, so we are running a Chimera in the command zone. God, I hate that. Okay. I don't love this card, y'all. It's confusing. I have never, you know what? Who put that in here? Alright, Henny, let's talk about it. Henny, congratulations, Henny. This is a good head, I'm gonna give you a little head pat. I have never seen in my entire life a card that plops down a +2/+2 counter. I hate it. It feels... Also, it's like... I don't like this card. This card confuses me, and I don't like it. A +2/+2 counter? My brain's broken. My brain is absolutely fried. It's part of a cycle. There's 4 of them. Oh, God, that's... Blur. Okay, thank you. Let's get out of here. Let's pull up Blur. Blur, 3 mana, instant, came out in the Baldur's Gate set. Exile target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control, you draw a card. Cool, we got a little instant, you exile target creature you control, you can get an ETB trigger off it. This thing's cool, it's a common, came out in Baldur's Gate, it does have draw a card staple to it, so if we copy it a bunch of times, at least we're going to get a bunch of draws off it. If we have a creature with an ATB effect, maybe like that colorless thing that returns an instant or sorcery from our graveyard, this thing could be very cool. Yeah, so if we have something with an ETB, maybe something like an Archaeomancer, or that colorless thing that returns instant sorceries from our graveyard to our hand, this thing could be great. Also, if we storm off with it, we're going to draw a bunch of cards off it. Minamo School at Water's Edge. Minamo School at Water's Edge. Okay, this thing got a reprint in the Lord of the Rings expansion. It's $60 for the reprint. Legendary land, taps for blue, enters untapped. You can pay a blue and you can untap target legendary. That's why this thing's so crazy expensive. You can untap your commander in a land slot. In a land slot that enters untapped. This thing's amazing, actually. This thing is so good. So you can activate his ability unless you're thinking of how it works. Yeah. Oh, yeah, if you give it haste, you could activate its ability when it comes back. Okay, wait, but Ironheart... God damn it. Ironheart Chimera. Let's pull it up. Does it give a +2/+2 counter? Of course it does. Ironheart Chimera is a 2/2 artifact creature. Attacking does not cause this thing to tap, so it's got vigilance. It's a Chimera. You sacrifice it, and you put a 2/2 counter on target Chimera, and attacking any turn does not call. You give it vigilance. Gods, I hate this. Okay. Alright, you know what? If we... Like, you know what would be funny? If we just run the Chimera cards, and this is like a secret Voltron commander. And be like, I bet you've never seen a +2/+2 counter strategy before. We could have effects that return it from the graveyard. Oh no, it's viable. I wonder if there is a Chimera commander that you could run these 5 cards in. Because they kind of work like counters, right? It's kind of like putting a vigilance counter on it, but not really. God, +2/+2 counters broke my brain tonight. Snap's a rad card. I love Snap. It's a 2-drop, and it says... Oh, come on, Snap. There it is. It's a 2-drop. Return target creature to its owner's hands. Untap 2 lands. It says untap 2 lands. It's 2 mana, and you untap 2 lands. The spell is free, or it makes you mana positive if you're untapping lands that generate multiple mana. This thing's very cool. I like it. It's also a good piece of interaction. It's instant speed. Put something back in its owner's hands. You untap 2 lands. It's so good. Untapping the 2 lands also helps you storm off. Embrace the Jank is not the name of a card I almost typed into there. Okay, wait, but Ironheart Chimera give +2/+2 in Vigilance, which is useful. Yeah, it is useful when we're tapping it to activate it, Henny. I cannot deny. Alright. Call the dogs, good to see you. Vanifar, yeah, it was burnt Vanifar. Alright, guys, we are caught up on suggestions. Ralzarek, flip the coins. Rainbow Poster wants us to run Ralzarek, the Planeswalker that flips coins. Ralzarek is a 4-drop walker. It has 3 activated abilities and it enters with 4 loyalty. The +1, tap target permanent, then untap another permanent. -2, Ralzarek deals 3 damage to any target. -7, flip 5 coins for each one that comes up. Take an extra turn after this one for each coin that comes up heads. So this thing is, you get it to 7, and hopefully you take some extra turns. Extra turns are a really good way to win in a Storm deck. It's a frustrating way to play against a Storm deck, but it's a viable way to win a Storm deck. And this thing can give us multiple turns off it alone. Past in Flame. Past in Flame. Past in Flame is a 4-drop red sorcery. Each instant sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost is equal to its mana cost. You can also flash it back for 5. So this is great. If you have a bunch of little piddly instants and sorceries in your graveyard, you could use this thing, give them flashback, cast them, get rid of them, get a high storm count, and then if you don't hit all the instants and sorceries in your graveyard, you can flash it back on the following turn and then give them everything flashback again and keep going. I like this thing. I run it in the Locust God. I also run it in a Saruman non-creature spell deck. This is a great card. And also the Chandra Spellbook, Secret Lair-like type product, is a really pretty printing of it. Doesn't the War of Spark... Yeah, let's... Ral. Let's pull up War of the Spark, Ral. War of the Spark, Ralzarek. Oh no, weird. Ral is not enough letters. If we knew Ralzarek or Ral whatever from War of the Spark, that would be better. Sword of the Parents. Sword of the Parents is a great way to untap. Sword of the Parents. Sword of the Parents is 4-drop, colorless artifact. It's 80 cents, and as long as the equipped creature is tapped, it gets +2/+0. You can also give it +0/+2 as long as it's untapped. You can pay 3, and you may untap it. We're running this thing here for the pay 3. We want to pay 3. We want to untap this thing a bunch of times. That's the way we get value off our commander. We need to storm off, and we need to tap him. We need to activate him. This thing is a way that we can pay 3. We can untap him. Storm Conduit. Storm Conduit. Storm Conduit, okay. Oh, Ral Storm Conduit, okay. Ral Storm Conduit. Caller of Storms. Ral Storm Conduit from War of the Spark. This is the Walker, enters with 3 loyalty. It's got a triggered ability. Trigger says whenever you cast a copy of an instant or sorcery spell, this thing deals 1 damage to target opponent or a planeswalker. +2, scry 1. -2, when you cast your next instant or sorcery spell, you copy that spell. You may cast choosing targets for the copy. When you copy that spell, you're going to get a trigger off Ral. to deal 1 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. This thing's cool. This little triggered ability is a way to win in a storm deck when you're storming off. Get enough pings, eventually their life totals will hit 0. This thing's cool. I don't think I've ever seen anybody win in a storm deck with this trigger. Very interesting. Not seen that before. Umbral Mantle. Umbral Mantle. Umbral Mantle is a 3-drop colorless equipment. The equipped creature has pay 3 mana, untap it, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn, but you can equip it for 0. This is another way that we can pay 3 mana, unequip our commander. It's a mana investment of 3 to put it on and 3 to untap it once. So we do have to pay 6 mana before this thing does anything for us, but if we can keep untapping our commander, we can get an insane amount of value off our Nostro. Ral, Monsoon Mage. That's the flip one, right? Monsoon Mage. Ral Monsoon Mage. Ral Monsoon Mage is a legendary human wizard 1/3 for 2 mana. Came out in Modern Horizons 3. Flips into a planeswalker. Says our instants and sorceries cost 1 less, and whenever we cast an instant or sorcery spell during our own turn, if you can flip a coin. If you lose the flip, this thing deals 1 damage to you. If you win the flip, you may exile Ral, and if you do, you return him to the battlefield. Into his planeswalker form, his planeswalker has a triggered ability. Ral, Leyline Prodigy, enters the battlefield with an additional loyalty counter on him for each instant sorcery spell you cast this turn. You can +1 him until your next turn. Instant sorcery spells you cost 1 less to cast. -2, deals 2 damage divided as you choose among any 1 or 2 targets. You draw a card if you control a blue permanent other than Raw. Exile the top 8 cards of your library, and you may cast instant sorcery spells from among them without paying for them for -8. This thing's cool. I have yet to see a Storm Ral deck ever. It's cool. I would definitely run it, though. For that little instants and sorceries you cast cost 1 less, that's great alone. That's good all by itself. On a 2-drop, no less. Alright, y'all, that is going to be it for tonight. I have to be getting up early. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me. One last time for tonight, I'm BGM. I'm a video editor and streamer. On lives, we do live deck building. We built Nostro tonight, suggested by Voidless Void on the Discord. If you want to vote on commanders we talk about during live deck building, check out the Gayer Discord channel. You can vote in the Commander Suggestion Dropbox channel. Thank you for hanging out with me. If you want to see any of the cards we talked about tonight, check out the Moxfield deck list.